Very good. You can start.
Thank you very much. So again, good morning here, good afternoon there. My name is Cristian Mendoza. I'm professor of Catholic social teaching at the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross. The topic that we would face today is on the meaning of human ecology. We know that Pope Francis has been very active in teaching on the ecological problems of the world. And we will try to understand now, following his two so-called ecologic encyclicals, the meaning of the teachings of the Pope. So, Laudato Si, published in 2016, is an encyclical that has this subtitle, The Care of Our Common Home. And this is part of what the Pope is worried about, that we should do something for the planet, the Earth. Although many people think that Laudato Si is an ecological encyclical, it is actually not. It's a social encyclical, because the concern of Pope Francis is not only on the use of natural resources, but rather is how the abuse of these natural resources affect those who are poorer and more in need. So is centered on poverty, inequality, and the abuse of natural resources. Laudate Deum is the most recent encyclical of Pope Francis, and it deals specifically with global warming. And we will see this at the end of this presentation that will be very brief. So first of all, the solution is we should get away from radical ecology, where the idea would be that the earth should be preserved in itself and that the human being should be an instrument to preserve the earth. And we see this in many people today, that they say we should stop having children because we don't want to destroy the earth. We should not have more development, in a sense, because we're destroying the earth. And in this way, at the end, what is at the center of the discussion is the creation, not the creator. God is the owner of life, and the church cannot accept radical ecology because the summit of creation is men and women who are entrusted to be the stewards of this creation. At the same time, and for the same reason, we are called to take care of creation in the name of God. So we cannot just abuse the natural resources and never take care of the planet. So the central teaching of Pope Francis regards not only the care of nature, but also social development and economic growth. One cannot happen without the other. And this is the proposal of integral development, that you need three things: the care of nature, the growth of the economy, and the care also of society. Society, economy, ecology. Those three together are like a tripod of this integral development. If you don't care about nature, at the end you will not be able to produce more wealth, and you will destroy society. If you don't care about society, but only wealth and nature, you will have like zones of the earth that are for pirates, but not real societies. And if you don't care about wealth, what would happen is that you can risk to go back to the Stone Age, or just to be ignored, like a good theory, but impossible to apply. At the end, when you read Laudato Si, I think a deep idea of Pope Francis that is in the end of this encyclical is that we should be very gentle with creation. And the gentleness we have towards creation speaks also of the attention we give to the Creator. And you see, it's not that we take care of nature and that's all, it's rather that because we understand that all that we have belongs to God, we take care of it. Like, to say something that is an example that is very limited, but a dog is not very important, but the dog of a king may be much more important. So the creation in itself is at the service of men, but the creation belongs to God. And we are called to be the stewards of this creation. The theological reflections that come here then is that we should be more attentive to nature and to society if we want to reach God. The way in which we live on earth is the way in which we reach God. We found God on earth, or we will never find him. And therefore, we should take care of nature and of society because he's part of our vocation. It's not just a good idea, it's much more than that. It's the way in which we can reach to heaven. So, first point, the Laudato Si is a social encyclical. This social encyclical rightly seeks to prompt us to think about how we can solve the difficulties concerning social justice, poverty, and inequality, keeping in mind the intimate relationship between the poor and the fragility of the planet. So, it is true that when we abuse natural resources, those who have less suffer more. And at the same time, the planet can be abused easily by those who have less education. So there's a relationship between the growth of society and the preservation of nature. And there's also a relationship between the taking care of nature and the development of those who are poorer. Amartya Sen, who is Nobel Prize of Economy and who was a professor in America and also in the UK, has an example. And he says, a lady called Annapurna needed a gardener. And she asked in the village where she lived to those who wanted to work in her garden to come. And three people showed to this call of Annapurna. The three persons were asking the same salary, and the three persons would do the same job. So she said, okay, if they have the same qualifications and they ask for the same money, I want to know them to take a rational decision of who would be the best person to hire. So the first person is the poorest. And if Annapurna gives him the work, he would be the one who would benefit the most objectively because he is absolutely the poorest. The second person is not as poor as the first one, but the second person is very recently poor. So he suffers a lot, his poverty. Existentially, he is in a worse position than the first person. The third person is not the poorest and is not the one who has recently impoverished, but the third one has a sickness that today is not shown and today is not affecting him at all to work. But one day he would need to save money to live in the future. So please tell me who of you would give the job to the first person who is the poorest? Please raise your hand. No one would give the job to the poorest. Okay, we have one, two, three. Wonderful. Who would give the job to the second person who is not the poorest, but is the one that existentially is the poorest? Who would give the job to the second person? Okay, no one wants to make happy the second person. Perfect. Okay. And the third person, who would give the job to the third person, who is the one who has a sickness that will show in the future? We have one. I guess we have some absences in the room. But I'm just making this example to tell you that governments and the United Nations take decisions on objective data. They will always give the job to the first person because they measure the wealth, and that's all. If you need the money, I give you the money, and you get the money because you're the poorest. There's no other considerations. Amartya Sen tried to create a happiness index where he would have other data, like time, when you got impoverished, How is the situation of your environment? And these measures somehow, in an objective way, the situation of the people. He has no other way to do it but to introduce new variables that are very controlled. The church, and especially Pope Francis, would try to have this holistic view that is part of the third person. It would not only consider the objective situation and the time where this situation happened, but it would also consider the whole environment, the faith, the idea, the future, the potential sicknesses, etc. And this third position is very hard to do because you would need to know a lot about people. Governments have no time to get to know so much about people. But the church can, because the faithful of the church can get to know others deeply, and then they can help them better. And this is part of what is here in Laudato Si. That's why he speaks about this relationship and inequality and poverty, that in itself, inequality is not always something evil because we can be unequal if we are free and we choose freely different ways to live. In any case, what the Pope is thinking about is that this world is running only on economic development and not thinking a lot on those who need also help. He's the first Pope that went to Central African Republic to open the Holy Door. It has never been an opening of the Holy Door in a Jubilee year outside of Rome, outside of Europe, and in Africa. And when he wanted to go there, the French authorities told him not to go, but he wanted to go in any case, because he's trying to say, I'm here with those who are abandoned, that no one cares about them. In this sense, I think Pope Francis is very much like Leo XIII. He is someone thinking about those who, at the end, never count, like the workers of Manchester in the 19th century. Second point, the document was very much appreciated because Laudato Si recognizes several good efforts that our society has implemented to improve the human condition, to the point that the encyclical has become a kind of public endorsement of some of the fundamental achievements of modernity, such as science and economic growth. And the Pope is saying, okay, this is very good. And that's why somehow this encyclical is very positive. The care of our common home, that is the subtitle of the encyclical, is the name of the document of the United Nations Global Agenda for 2030. This means that the Pope is somehow putting the ideas of the political speech also into the reflection of the church. And it was very much appreciated. We see here Pope Francis with the Archbishop of Canterbury and the wife of the Archbishop. The Lambeth Palace, Lambeth Palace is the palace of the Archbishop of Canterbury in London. And immediately they signed a sort of agreement on the care of nature, and a lot of leaders from religious communities accepted immediately Laudato Si. The World Bank president said that this encyclical was not just a good document, but it could be part of the guide for the international discussions on the protection of the earth. The World Bank president said that around 30 billion are lost for natural disasters that could be prevented. But you see that the Pope is not writing the encyclical just to preserve economic means. The Pope is writing the encyclical because he is thinking about the problem of those who are most deprived. This papal encyclical is divided in some chapters, and we can see the first chapter is like a cry. It's so important to do something. The second chapter is a theology of creation, as I was telling you, that we don't need to just take care of the nature in itself, but God entrusted man with all creation. And then the third chapter would tell us that we also need to purify our understanding of the ecology thanks to the faith. We could create, for example, farms that are artificial and bring bigger and better vegetables and things, but we should not try to do that the same with human beings or with other kind of things that are very close to humanity. So we are not owners of creation. Then he would say in chapter 4 that everything is interconnected. And this is a central idea that everything has a consequence for all the other things. If we are creating a lot of wealth, well, we can be making money against the protection of nature and it has a consequence. Or we can just be trying to have a wealthier society without thinking if it is a better society. The example that the Pope is saying is imagine a family, mom, dad, and children, that they observe that the children are at the end not well taken care of. And they say we should give more time to our children. And if they would need to give more time to the children, then they could say, okay, why don't you or I work part time to give more time and attention to our children? And if this family do that, they will not be wealthier because our mom or dad stopped working full time and are working part time. So they would receive less money, but that family will be better. So Pope Francis is saying if this works for a family that can stop working to give more time to their children, why doesn't the world do the same thing? There are so many people that are suffering. There are so many people that are poor and abandoned. Why should we, some of us, could stop making money to serve them? And I was the other day reading, actually, you may know that there are 300 million of people with depression, diagnosticated depression. And there are 270 million people with anxiety. So the total population of the United Nations, of the, European Union, is depressed or anxious. Of course, not everybody is here in Europe. But this is something that is true. There are a lot of people suffering. And sometimes we say, well, yeah, they suffer. Life is like that. I need to go to work. I need to get my check. And that's all. So this is something that the Pope is saying at the end. He comes back with this idea of a new culture of respect and authentic spirituality that is somehow part of what he wants to say to transform the family and society from within. The fourth point, this encyclical is calling us to rethink capitalism. Pope Francis is not against the capitalist system, but he's post-capitalist. He wants to do something different. And that's why he's saying, I'm not trying to go back to the Stone Age, but our politics are subject sometimes to technology and finance. And he is questioning about the authenticity of this development, suggesting that we keep our powerful tools to use them differently. You may know that Pope Francis met with a Spanish businessman. I've never knew if this was a member of the work or not. But this Spanish businessman told the Pope, Holy Father, I have a school and I give scholarships to poor kids and I teach them. And the Pope asked him, and what do you do with these children? And he repeated again, well, I have a school and I give scholarships. Yes, 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 I understood it, said the Pope. But what do you do with them? Do you play with them? Do you talk to them? Do you sing with them? Do you walk with them? Or do you just give them something? So this is the same. We have NGOs and we have the economic systems to help poor nations. We don't know them. We never get to touch them. We never get to get to know them. And this is something that the Pope is saying, okay, this development, I don't know if this is a really human development or if he's just giving something to them. The capitalist system creates a lot of personal responsibility. And we know that one of the problems of this current system is that one person can create a lot of harm. And this is the case of Bernie Madoff. And it has been a disaster for him and for his whole family. But he created a system in which he was paying interests with the money of newcomers to his system. He was not producing anything. But if you would invest your money in a fund of Madoff, and you would get 20% a year, and you would never ask why or how, you were contributing to this system. Everybody just wanted to have the money. He was paying 15% per year, no matter what. And there was a lot of greed in this. It is true that when they caught him, he got already 50 billion, and the system wasn't working anymore. But we get to know people here in the university, one of our donors, who invested all that he had in a Madoff fund. And he asked for 100 million to his friends. And he lost everything from one day to the other. And he committed suicide. And some weeks later, we were with Pope Benedict XVI, I remember, in the Synod of Bishops. And he wanted to say in a commentary in the room that he was worried because we are creating anonymous capitals that we don't know to whom they belong, but the human being can give their life to them and can be sacrificed to them. Those are the new idols. I think he was quite right. And I think this is something that can happen. And that's why it's not only economic wealth, it's much more to that. The subtitle that we read there, Committed to Improve the State of the World, is the slogan of the World Economic Forum. And we organized the only meeting between the Vatican officially and the World Economic Forum here in Rome. And the founder of the WEF came, Klaus Schwab, and he said that even if the World Economic Forum is an exclusive institution, they can include people because they don't want to change the state of the world, but to understand the problems, to stop those problems to be worse. Now, the church wants to change the state of the world now and today, because it's not just to understand the problems. I can understand everything and then doing nothing to change it. This is what the Pope is thinking about, the social conflicts of the world. There are now 38 wars in course, and we see this sort of ship of immigrants coming to Europe. Now, 1.8 million of people crosses the Mediterranean every year from Africa to Europe. But the immigration problem involves almost 40 million people, 15 million only to the States every year. So the people that is trying to get to Europe is not a lot in proportion. In countries like Lebanon, that is a country of 4.5 million of inhabitants, there are 1.5 million of immigrants coming from Syria. And therefore, the problem is impossible to solve because you have these problems of people that are used and moved, like if they don't care. This is what the Pope is thinking about. And of course, the fundamentalist groups like Boko Haram in Nigeria, that is somehow destroying society from within as well. The Pope is thinking about this, the possibility of creating soldier boys, like in Sudan, how the guerrilla comes to the villages and they just kidnap the people. And this is a total reality that is happening now. But again, those are the situations that no one cares about. And this is inside of Laudato Si. This encyclical got a lot of media attraction. A lot of people were speaking about Laudato Si when it came out, especially because the Pope was criticizing the use of some resources that are not renewable, like gas or oil. And when the encyclical was published, the 5 largest investment banks in the UK were investing 90 billion sterlings in oil extraction. And if you're putting all your money in a project that the Pope is criticizing, it's better to stop this criticizing of the Pope. And so they also criticize a lot Laudato Si because of this. They said that, of course, this is not something that the Pope should care about. Well, the Pope is not really thinking only on the use we do of oil or gas. This is not the point. The point is to understand how this mechanism affects those who don't count for the world. As I said, the Pope spoke a lot on the Laudato Si when he went to the United Nations, and the global agenda of the United Nations has a lot to do with this encyclical. There are points that are together, both emphasize the United Nations documents and Laudato Si, the possible risk for misuse of energy, like fossil fuels, and they call for the use of clean, renewable energy. And they have an attention to nature, the desertification of land and soil, and they call to protect the genetic diversity of seeds. We should not create nature according to our own understanding. And those are similarities. We should take care of the world, we should take care of what we see. But there are some dissimilarities because the United Nations documents speaks only once about the dignity of the person, and Laudato Si instead is speaking all the time. And Laudato Si stresses that you should be attentive to the protection of infants and unborn children. And of course, the United Nations document speaks about health rights in sexual and reproductive sphere. So you see that there are differences in the documents, but there are a lot of agreement. And I think because of the agreement, the Pope brought back the church to public dialogue. And this is exactly what Catholic social teaching tries to do, to keep in mind that the church is really interested into this world, into this earth. We see here a manifestation in favor of Angela Merkel. She was called by Time magazine the chancellor of the free world. And she would repeat again that the heart and soul of Europe is tolerance. She opened up the borders of Germany and accepted 1 million immigrants, also because the German needed handwork. But when some of them created some crimes, she had a big problem also. So, what is the point? We can use society to develop economy, but if we don't keep in mind that at the center is the human being, then we can end using people just to make money. And the same happens with nature. We should try to take care of nature because it belongs to God for our relationship with the Creator. There are some theories that are not mainstream economic theories in this encyclical. And that's why it's interesting to know that a lot of the parts of the encyclical are just teachings because the church has not an economic idea. There's not a Catholic economic idea, and there are many possibilities. But those teachings remember that, yeah, of course, we should reuse, revamp, recycle, and that can improve the energy efficiency of cities. Now, what is behind this teaching is the blue economy. The city that you see is Västerås. This is a city that is 100 kilometers north from Stockholm in Sweden. And this place is usually like all the winter, 4 months at minus 30 Celsius degrees. It's very cold. So they have a central heating system of the water. And this heating of the water works thanks to burning rubbish. But they have not enough garbage to burn. So they offer Italy and Spain a service to get their garbage, and they get paid for that, and they use that garbage to heat in the water. So it's a system that gives a lot of money to the Swedish, and it's a system that recycles the things we have. So these kind of ideas came from the book of Gunther Pauli, and you can find those in Laudato Si. There's another idea in Laudato Si that comes from Mariana Mazzucato. She's an American economist, and she has a lot of books, and she's very critical with the capitalist system. Her main idea is that the state should be entrepreneurial. The state should invest in the projects that will change the state of society. And I remember in Lisbon talking to a group of Brazilian businessmen that they say, the last thing I want is to see my government investing in companies here. It depends a lot on the situation of the world, but Mariana Mazzucato says that the internet started like a military intelligence operation. And today, because the state invested into this, internet is one of the largest industries. So she's basically saying that the state should take the risk and allow the development of some regions. Actually, today in Italy, they're voting a law that allows Italian businesses to work in Africa. And if they fail because of the political situation, the government will take the responsibility. So it's more or less the same what Matsukato is proposing, what they're doing here. So it's very interesting to see that the Pope is including all these ideas there. Here is Pope Francis is saying that political realities should not submit to economic power, but the other way around. And then, and with this I will finish, the last economic theory that is inside of Laudato Si is an idea on sustainable development in the way that Schumacher, who is an English author, German origin, he used to be Buddhist, but by contemplating the world, he became Christian. He says that we should have like a world that has adequate scales. His book is called Small is Beautiful. And he says that we should not think globally. He's very against the mainstream. He says that we should have places of the world where the more we take care of nature, the more we will take care also of society, and therefore the more wealth we will have. And this means for him what is happening in the regions of Cognac. The more we take care of the grapes, the more we take care of how to make Cognac, the better the Cognac will be and the more wealthy we will be. And this is a system where every part of the tripod is together. This appropriateness of scale is the centrality of the cultural and human element in the development of the economy is emphasized, as we can easily see from the great success of products in which there is an inextricable union between the territory and the product, as champagne, cognac, or tequila. So this is part of the ideas that are here. And to come to an end, we see that Pope Francis is saying the ecologic tragedy of the earth is responsibility of the human being. And I think that if you live in an environment where pollution is destroying a lake, it's clear that is responsibility of man. If you live in an environment where the air is polluted because we don't care about the control of our cars and we just pollute, this is responsibility of man. If the earth is gaining temperature 1 or half a degree every 10 years, it's much harder to say that this is because we are creating this. And some scientists are saying, well, we should study this before saying that this is totally responsibility of man. So there are many things inside of the ideas of the Pope that could be part of the opinions of the faithful, and therefore their teachings, and we cannot just ignore them. We should think about them. But there are many other things that are really principles. And if we protect the nature against human men and we stop having children because this world will be destroyed, then we go against the doctrine. And we should be more attentive to the principles, the common good, the human dignity, the subsidiarity, the solidarity that are involved in these encyclicals. And with this, I just wanted to finish, and thank you very much for following me on this human ecology explanation.